Hey folks, how's it going? My name is Brian Sanyshyn, composer, music educator, and founder of the Game Audio Company. If you're watching this video on YouTube right now, here's a little bit you need to know before we get started. This video is part of a series called the Game Audio Company Academy Launchpad, which is part of our audio learning series inside of our Skool community on Skool.com. Okay, so if you're somebody who's just getting started on your journey in composition or sound design or anything game audio, we highly encourage you to come and join us over on Skool, where you'll have access to more in-depth conversations, in-depth videos and resources and peer reviews and webinars and that sort of thing. So if that's something that piques your interest, it's free to join. Please come on over and join us. And we'll see you there. All right, let's get to it. All right, folks, let's get started. So you are here, and if you are, I'm going to assume that it's because you are somebody who is just starting out in your journey in composition, sound design, working with any sort of audio on your computer. Okay, so I'm going to try and give you a clear idea of what you do in fact need, sort of your growth trajectory, things that you might want to add to your studio as your career evolves and as you get deeper and deeper into this. But I'm also hoping to dispel some rumors in what a lot of people think you need to get going. And I want you to recognize that the barrier to entry is actually fairly low. Okay, so simply put, if you are somebody who is standing here right now and you have a laptop, right, you really can get started with just a laptop. Okay, obviously it's easier if you have some other things. Okay, but at the very least, if you have a laptop, it's a great place to start. Okay, so a little bit about me and sort of my journey as I first got started, which I know is so similar to so many other folks in this space, is I was a music major in college. I was an education major. I am a music teacher by day, and I do all of my composition stuff at night. That is sort of how my day looks right now. Okay, and I have a master's degree in education. I have a master's degree in composition. But when I first got going, it was, a friend reached out to me and, hey, Brian, I know that this is something that you do. I need music for this thing. Can you hook me up? And I was like, sure. And at the time I had a MacBook Pro. I had a pair of headphones. I didn't even have a MIDI controller. Okay, and I was working in a piece of software called Dorico, which is a music notation software. We'll get more into software and stuff a little bit later on. And I did this, I wrote this track using the MIDI that was available in Dorico, and I spent a little bit of money to up the stock sounds that were in Dorico to another company's product called Note Performer. And that was what I used, and I shipped it to him, and I sent it, and that was what he ended up using on his final project, and it worked great. It was exactly the sort of thing that I needed, and so I did all of that basically with gear that I had already had at my fingertips, with the only real investment there being when I purchased Dorico when I was in college, so maybe a little bit after college, right? As that sort of thing kind of grew, I started, he shared with some friends that I did some work for him, and I had some other people coming at me, and I was like, all right, well, maybe it's time that I kind of up my game a little bit, right? And so in addition to having my MacBook Pro, I had a 13-inch MacBook Pro, 16 gigs of RAM, nothing really crazy, right? It wasn't a laptop that I had purchased specifically for creating music. It was what I had, and it was sufficient for what I was doing, right? And so, the next thing I did is I did a little research, and I found I needed to get myself an audio interface, right? And so this right here was my first audio interface. This is a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. It has 2 inputs on it. I could plug a microphone into it, record some things live. I could plug, one of my guitars into it if I needed to, or whatever it might be. And so this was great. It really got me going, and I know so many people who still use these. Some people who do a lot of paid work who use this as their primary axe, and I really did use this for the first probably 3 or 4 years of my compositional career as my main audio interface. Okay. The other thing that I used was I just had a pair of headphones, of decent, middle of the road headphones. Okay, they're not the most expensive. They weren't the cheapest. These aren't even the first pair that I had. These are ones that I actually still use today. The first pair I had came with my Focusrites. I don't have them anymore. I've since given them away to a student who actually was kind of right where you are. He was looking to get going, and I just had an extra pair laying around, and so I gave them to him, right? And so I just had my audio interface, my laptop, and a pair of headphones, and that was it. And Dorico and a little bit of Note Performer that I had. They had like a lease purchase thing. I think I paid like $8 the first month or something like that to get access to it. And at the time I was working in notation software. I was plugging in notes one at a time, and it was a little slower, but it definitely got the job done. I got some paid work for it. I was doing the thing, right? And it was great. Okay. The next investment that I made was I felt that I needed to get my hands on some sort of MIDI controller, right? I felt like I needed a way to input my ideas into my computer. And so this was my next purchase, this exact one, right? This is an Akai MPK Mini, right? I am a sucker for things with, cool colors on it, which is why I got the red and black one, right? They make a million different ones. They also make a million different units that are just like this one that also get the job done, right? I think at the time I paid maybe $100 for this or $120 for it. Okay, this was maybe 10 years ago or so. The prices have probably gone up a little bit, right? But you don't need anything more than this to get started, right? And even having a MIDI controller, right, you can really do without it, okay? But it's a great place to start. It's a relatively inexpensive, sort of low barrier to entry. The next thing that I got is actually, I meant to grab it and then I came and sat down, but over my shoulder right here, right, I have an Arturia Keylab 48 key keyboard. Okay, it's an unweighted keyboard just like this one, right? But it gave me, a couple more octaves to play in so that I didn't have to do so much shifting back and forth, right? And again, that keyboard was a little bit more expensive, okay? But that's where I started. And for probably the first two and a half years of my compositional career, I lived on a laptop with a pair of headphones, and audio interface, and a MIDI controller. Okay. And so, for many of you out there, I would imagine that you have a laptop or a computer. Okay. And it doesn't matter if it's a Mac or a PC, right? I have a lot of professors from my grad program who work on PCs, and I have some that work on Macs, and they swear by whichever one they work by. But at the end of the day, there are people doing the thing on both, right? And so anybody who argues, that one is better than the other one, definitively, I'm going to just disagree with the premise of that argument based on the fact that there are people who do it professionally at a very high level on either one, right? So at the end of the day, it comes down to what you are most comfortable with, okay? So MIDI controller, laptop, headphones, audio interface. In terms of hardware, if you can get your hands on those four things, right, you are absolutely golden. Okay. The only thing that I'm going to stress a little bit about your computer is that when it comes to composing on a computer, the most important thing, the most important spec on your computer is your RAM, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about virtual instruments, VSTs, using MIDI, that sort of thing. But VSTs are very, very RAM intensive. They put a lot of strain on your CPU. So the more headroom you have on your computer, the better. So I would encourage you, if you are somebody who's looking to invest in a laptop right now, to get yourself started, at the minimum, the bare minimum, you want to have about 16 gigs of RAM. If you can get 32, even better. If you can go more than that, all the better. You can't have too much, but you certainly can have too little. And it doesn't take much to kind of max yourself out once your projects start to get a little bit bigger. Okay, so take a minute, go ahead, do a little bit of research. I'm going to include a list, a document, some links for things to you, that I know that either I've used or I have, friends that they've used, things that are of decent quality, okay? But I cannot stress enough, right? There is something in every price point for anybody to be able to get going, right? What you have now is not where you're going to start, okay? What I just told you right now is what my studio used to look like. And if you could even call it a studio, right? I had a desk that had a laptop and I had these things on it, right? And now I'm really fortunate that my space has sort of evolved, right? I have this beautiful desk. I have a nice, updated audio interface. I have, power supply. I have a great computer, 2 sets of monitor. You know what I mean? Like, you can see, like, my space has certainly evolved, right? But I was able to do this because I had the ability to kind of get some of that work early on by using things like, you know, this, right, and a pair of headphones. Okay, so you really can get going. Okay, so anyway, I am going to give you a chance to sort of ruminate on this a little bit, think about it, start doing some investigating. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to put together a document for you that is going to have a list of sort of some good places to start, different price points, so that you have an idea of where you might go. Okay, the next video, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the software side of things. We're going to talk about different DAWs. We're going to talk about some VSTs, a good place to dive in. Okay, and I guess we'll see you in the next one.